Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey with Nicole and Azan. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a couples therapist and a professor. These videos should be used for education and information only. They should not be used for a replacement for therapy. If you need therapy, make sure you get it. You deserve it.
My name is Nicole. I'm 22 and I'm from Bradenton, Florida. Hey, I have a daughter and her name is May. She is 2.5 years old and she is the light of my life.
Now, I know some of you did not like some of the things I was saying during season 4 in that I was focusing mainly on Nicole's development as a self-sufficient individual who isn't being pressured by other people to do things. In that discussion, if you were in the room, I would be able to gauge that and actually be able to respond to that right away. So essentially what I was saying in a lot of these videos was that, especially when I was watching Nicole with her mom and her brother, was that the two of them, Nicole and mom particularly, were engaged in a relationship in which the mom was being domineering and really controlling and telling Nicole what to do. The mom was making Nicole giving her a lot of messages to make Nicole feel like she doesn't know what she's doing. And Nicole was acting incompetent and acting like a child. She would whine. She would not present good, convincing arguments for her case. She exhibited a lot of incompetence in those areas. And when Nicole was away from her mom, she exhibited more maturity and more differentiation. But when she was around her mom, we had this dynamic. And so what I was talking about was that if the mom really, because the mom genuinely worries about her daughter, which is good. The mom worries about her daughter. Of course, good parents worry about their children, even if the child is 22 years old. And so that was good. But what she was doing with that worry was engaging in that very old dynamic of making Nicole feel like she doesn't know what she's doing, and Nicole also acting as if she doesn't know what she's doing. And if the mom really wants Nicole, if the mom really wants to reduce her anxiety, if the mom really wants Nicole to make good choices, then this dynamic is not going to help. To make someone feel incompetent doesn't usually create the ability to develop your own competence. To control someone else's decisions doesn't give them the chance to make their own decisions and learn from their mistakes. So my primary concern for Nicole is that she learn to mature, that she learns to differentiate, she learns to have independence, that she can learn how to make her own decisions, that she can learn how to evaluate decisions instead of relying on other people to tell her what to do. Because it seems as though she relies on a lot of other people to tell her what to do. And or she reacts in opposition to her mother. It's like, well, my mom wants me to do this and I'm going to do a different thing. We might characterize that as like a 14-year-old position. In order to develop a sense of self, the 14-year-old will just sometimes rebel against the parents because it makes them feel like they're independent, when in fact they're not really independent. They're just reacting against what their parents are doing. The terrible twos is another example of that. 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old kids will sometimes, as they're developing their sense of who they are, their individualism, they just want to say no all the time. And if you've had kids who've gone through a phase like this, it can be very frustrating because the kid wants a piece of pizza, but the kid will say no, just because they're in this habit of saying no. Well, why are they going through that phase? Well, because before that phase, they just did whatever you said. And then they realize, wait, I can say no? Wow, that makes me feel like I have power, like I'm different from you. It feels good to have my own identity. Of course, at the age of 2, 3, and 4, it's a very fragile sense of self that's still developing. And at 14, it also isn't the way it will be when you're 35 years old. My hypothesis is that Nicole had too much control for whatever reason. I would guess, total hypothesis, total speculation, that for her, she was the scapegoat in the family, and the family had some tension, some anxiety issues around being close and around flying apart, and they all banded together to scapegoat her. And so she sacrificed herself, and she was sacrificed on the altar of the family to produce closeness for everyone so that the anxiety would go down. And she played her part. She made sure that she acted incompetent so that everyone could focus on her. It's a complicated idea that I don't expect everyone to understand. I teach systems theory to people for years, and they barely understand it. I taught it for years before I got it myself. I probably taught systems theory for 10, 15 years before I really grasped it. So I don't expect everyone to understand it. You don't, and it's just a way of looking at the world. It's not necessarily the right way of looking at the world. And so people are criticizing me. They think what I'm saying is that I am supporting her relationship with Azan, and I'm supporting her perhaps bad parenting with May in that she's dragging May into this precarious situation. I'm not supporting Nicole's individual decisions. What I'm supporting is Nicole developing her own sense of self and her own competence, free of other people telling her that she's stupid. Because in order for her to develop into a human being who can make good choices for herself, she has to not be emotionally beaten down by other people. So I am in no way in support of Nicole's relationship with Azan. I have no idea. But I am in support of an adult woman's choice to make her own life, to choose who to be with. She has that choice. We, as the audience and her parents, do not have the right to control her or criticize her decisions. She gets to make her own life. Now, there is a child involved, May, and we're all going to be concerned about that. I'm concerned about that too. I'm a human being. But I don't know. I don't know enough. I've been through a lot. I'm a family therapist. I've been with a lot of families through a lot of different lives, and there's just not enough data to know if this is going to be bad for May or not. I just don't know. Now, a lot of you out there also have watched this entire season, and I think this couple's on another season, because this season was years ago. I have not watched it. So this situation might be horrible for May. Maybe Azan beats May. I don't know. You might know that. I don't know that. So all I'm reacting to is what I'm watching to. If this is going to be a true reaction video, I can't watch the entire season, go back, and then act like I'm reacting to a TV show. So I have no idea. So you have the benefit of knowing the future. I don't. But to be clear, I'm not supporting her individual decision. What I'm supporting is Nicole emotionally and relationally to other people having the ability to make her own choices and learn from her mistakes. So let me give you an example. Let's say that in this environment where the family is really coming down hard on Nicole and saying, you don't know what you're doing, this is a big mistake. And let's say Nicole decides to go and try to pursue her relationship with Azan. And let's say it goes terribly. Well, so there's two possibilities, negative possibilities that could happen. One is Nicole could say, the only reason why it didn't work is because my parents screwed it up. Okay, and that might not necessarily be true, right? And then she doesn't learn from her mistakes. She just learns, well, I just have to further oppose my family. The second possibility is that she has such low self-esteem because her family is making her feel so terrible about herself that she will sustain the relationship way beyond the point where she actually believes it's good for her to do so, because she doesn't have anyone to turn to. She can't go back to her family because she knows they're going to say, I told you so. And so there's a lot of bad things that can happen, even if the relationship is predictably bad, if the parents continue and the mom and the brother and everyone else continue to treat her like she's incompetent. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about Nicole developing as a mature individual who can evaluate her own choices. I'm not in support of the particular choices that she's making. I'm not in support of any of the decisions that anyone makes on this show, because that's not my job. One, as a therapist, I work with people on their own choices. It's not up to me to tell them what to do. And I learned long ago that I have no idea what's right for other people. Before I was a therapist, I had all these ideas like, well, that looks bad. And I used to think that that's what therapists did, was like, well, you shouldn't do that, you should do this. I remember really believing that. But becoming a therapist disabused me of that really, really false notion that somehow therapists have this ability to somehow divine the right course of action for a client. Anyway, let's get back to the show.
It's been about 6 months since I've seen Azan in person, and a lot of things have changed, but like in a good way, and we know that we really love each other and that we really want to go through with the K-1 visa. I think we're so much stronger as a couple now, and Honestly, I feel like we're like so in love. I think, yeah. Oh, what happened?
I will say that generally speaking, when you have kids, particularly young kids, and you are dating, which I'm going to characterize Nicole as that's what she's doing, you generally don't want your kids to be attached to the individuals you're dating until you really know that the person you're dating is a permanent fixture in your life. And that kind of depends, if at this age May might perceive as in to just be this adult person, a friend of mom's that comes in and out of her life, and she's not super attached. The issue is that if attachment forms between child and the person you're dating, to have that ripped apart will often have a negative effect on the child. So I wonder how they're navigating that, and I wonder how May is interpreting the relationship with Azan. I guess we'll get more data as things move on here.
Well, we've been talking about it a lot. One of the things we considered is what you would do if you didn't come here. If you move to another country and take May with you.
We want you here where we can have an influence on your life, May's life.
And we decided that we'll sponsor him.
Really?
I really don't think Nicole knows how much responsibility we're taking on. It's hard not to feel bullied into it, but that's Nicole.
Okay, so we see a much different dynamic between dad and daughter, and stepmom and daughter. Very different from the relationship that she had with her mother and her brother. We're getting a full family configuration here of mom who is caring. She cares and she loves her child. She loves Nicole, but she approaches the worry of an adult child in a way that is, I'm going to say, domineering. And the older brother did too. The dad has a different approach. Let's see if we could see more of that.
Do you understand that we're sacrificing, that we're risking?
I know.
It's 10 years. If you get divorced after a few years, we're still going to be responsible for Azan. You feel like he's not just using you?
I don't feel like he's using me. Not really.
Because asking us to sponsor him would open us up to being used by him.
Okay, so this appears to be much more of an adult-to-adult conversation. The mother, if you want to watch those other videos, the style of conversation is much more mother and young child style of conversation. And Nicole participated in that by acting like a child, which sucks the mother into acting like a mother treating a young child. And the mother acts like Nicole is a young child, so Nicole acts like, So it's a both and. They're both creating that. In this situation, the parents have very similar concerns, rational concerns of, is this guy for real? How are we going to be negatively impacted by this decision? But the wording and the vibe of this conversation is much more adult to adult, which is what it is.
We do have a couple of conditions. In order for us to sponsor Azan, you have to have a good job, and then when he comes here, that you guys don't live together before you're married.
Oh, really? There are a lot of trust issues that me and Azan have to get through because when I was in Morocco, we couldn't be a normal, couple. So having to live separately is going to be a lot harder.
So this is interesting. The dad seems to not have that domineering way, but at the same time, he has this stipulation on their relationship in the way that you would have a stipulation on a teenage relationship. I'm just wondering, why would the dad stipulate that? Now, I will say that if the parents came to me and said, what should I do? My 22-year-old daughter is asking me to sponsor this person coming to the United States. What should I do? I would say, I have no idea. There's nothing clinically that I could say about that. That's your choice. There's no way to know the best choice here. The key here, and I want to distinguish this for everyone, is in no way am I saying the parents or the family should do X, Y, and Z. What we're hoping for, again, is to build Nicole up so she can make her own choices, learn from her own mistakes, begin to mature. For you adults out there, how do you know how to make a good choice in life? You didn't just emerge from the womb with the ability to balance your checkbook or to know when you should break up with someone or know when you should go to a physician. As an independent adult, you didn't just develop those skills on your own. You developed those skills within a context that allowed you to experiment with your own choices, to learn from your own mistakes while having a secure base to go back to. And at different ages, it looks differently. To a 4-year-old, you go to the playground and you sit on the bench and you send your 4-year-old into the playground, and the kid looks back at you and you say, and even though you're anxious about your 4-year-old playing with other kids on the playground, you take a deep breath and say, well, this is good. I want my 4-year-old to be confident to play in the playground. The kid goes off and plays on the playground. The kid runs back and wants to be with you. Kid goes back into the playground. The kid is having a bit of a conflict with another kid. What do? That's the dilemma. On one hand, you should go over there and maybe help your kid out. On the other hand, you want your 4-year-old to learn on their own, because eventually they're going to be in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. They're going to go to recess and play with other kids, and you're not going to be there. So they have to learn how to navigate that. So that is the dilemma that every parent goes through, every parent's aware of. When the kid is 10 years old, then there's another version of that. When the kid is 15 years old, there's another version. When the kid is 17 years old, there's another version of that. When the kid is 22, there's another version of that. How does that exactly look? Well, it can look a lot of different ways. As a family therapist, I know enough to know there's a lot of different ways to raise healthy children. So when it comes to Nicole, if I was to be treating this family, I'd be asking the parents to really focus on what they're really trying to do. They would they rather have Nicole be dependent and childish and, incompetent and unable to make her own choices without everyone else getting in the way in her mind? Or would you rather have a 22-year-old, 25-year-old daughter who can make her own choices and 99% of the time make a good enough choice in life? Which one would you rather have? Well, of course, most parents say, well, I'd like to have a competent daughter who can make her own choices. Okay, well, what that requires is that you don't intervene as much. In the same way that you're sitting on the bench watching the 4-year-old have a little bit of a conflict with another kid on the playground, you don't want to rush over there and save them, because kids need to learn. They need to learn without you saving them. They need to learn without you intervening. Plus, there's a message you give to kids when you intervene that isn't always true. But one of the messages that can happen, especially if it's repeated, which I'm guessing it very much was for Nicole, is that as parents, you believe that she is incompetent, that she can't make decisions on her own, that she's stupid, dumb, not smart enough, someone who doesn't know how to make decisions. That's the message you give when you constantly jump and try to save a child. It can make a child feel that way. Now, in this instance, the dad is saying, I will sponsor. Might that be an issue for Nicole, although it's what Nicole is asking for? Might that be a message of like, yeah, you're not going to be able to do this on your own. Let me save you. Or is it saying to Nicole, I trust you that you can manage this? But at the same time, the dad is saying, I don't trust you, and you're not going to be able, you can't live together when he comes over. So it seems kind of a mixed message, but I don't know. Well, the proof is in the pudding, so we'll see how this plays out, I'm guessing, over this season.
Well, we love you, and we want you to be happy, but we're really counting on you to take it seriously. Just because he comes here doesn't mean you have to marry him.
We might be paying for this for a very long time, but you could be paying for it even longer.
So it's there's a little bit of some messages of some put down there. I think Nicole is smart enough to understand what they are saying. But on the other hand, they have the right, since they're involved now and she's asking them for a favor, to voice their worries because they're now involved. Their lives are now involved. And so, they're communicating it, I think, in a pretty good way. They're just like, look, we depend on you now to do X, Y, and Z, because if you don't, then a lot of bad things are going to happen. But you notice the vibe, the tone at which this conversation is happening, I'm guessing for Nicole, makes her feel better about herself, or at least makes her not feel bad about herself, the way that her conversations with other people in her family made her feel. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle, in which we follow Nicole and Azan. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, take care of others, because you deserve it. You really, really do.